Hello, welcome to Search with Sean, and this is another Chat with Sean episode, and really looking forward to this one. Got a great guest, you can see. Before we get on to that, obviously I do the usual admin stuff. I've got a few slides to bring up just to show you what's going on. Hopefully this works, and there's two of me now, so just to scare you. So obviously we've started this new sort of series called Real Talk with Sean, where I get 3 or 4 experts to come in and discuss some hot topics, and we get really stuck into it and give us some honest kind of feedback and opinions. And on this episode we talked about things like what rights should content creators have when their work is used for AI training. That's really interesting. The search engines have responsibility for smaller publishers. Does blogging still offer value, and will AI empower humanity or lead to its decline? So that was an interesting one. We touched on some really interesting topics, so do head over and check that one out. And I do have to apologize, actually I uploaded it and realized there's loads of gremlins in the system, so I had to go back and re-edit it and publish it. So if you did watch the original and you thought it was a bit clunky and stuff, then you may want to go back. It's a lot better now, so apologies for that, but these things happen. And next, I've had a chat with BB, the link builder. So we've done a really great episode where we went through some real life examples and how we would build link strategies and things like that. So that was really cool. So definitely check that one out, and all the links will be in the description. And I also talked with Lucy Gornall. She's a top journalist in health industry usually, and we're all talking about AI in journalism, the ethics, and how you can stand out from the crowd when you're doing sort of PR and press releases and that kind of thing. So really interesting. And finally, the channel has a website. It's still work in progress, so don't hate me too much, but it's it says the usual stuff, and there's some information on the different shows and stuff you want to catch up with that. So work in progress, but hopefully there's some useful stuff on there. And finally, what we got coming up, we got another Real Talk with Sean. I got 3 amazing guests, so stay tuned for that one and subscribe and all that to make sure you're up to date with everything. I'm doing a bit of a deep dive on Wikipedia. The recent show I was talking about them, and I'm having a bit of a deeper dive into how things are working on there, and doing more usual SEO and AI news. Lot going on, Elon Musk trying to buy ChatGPT, and the rest of it. So definitely stay tuned for that one. And I'm doing a very special Q&A in a few weeks' time with a top UK agency, and we're going to be live streaming that, so you can send in questions and stuff. So obviously that'll be streamed on YouTube and LinkedIn, so do make sure you're either following me or subscribing on YouTube for more info on that. So I'll stop going on and we'll get on to the real action, and obviously with our guest today. So I'll do a quick intro, and then we'll get going on some topics. So today's guest, as you can see, is Georgia Tan, and Georgia is a co-founder of Switch Key Digital and an international speaker, including at SEO Estonia and Digital Marketing Europe. She also organises Women in SEO and Digital Marketing Sydney. So, I really appreciate you joining me late in the day over in Australia. And thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Sean. It's great to be on your show. And looking forward to chatting.
So let's get cracking on the topics, because I'm being really excited to get you on and discuss these with you. And obviously one thing I'm asking most guests now is obviously, what do you think of the current state of search? Because it's changed so much in the last few years, and just the last year alone. What do you make of it all? Obviously, as a co-founder of an agency as such. So what do you think?
Yeah, of course, things are definitely changing really, really quickly at the moment. I feel like traditional SEO tactics are not going to work as well, sort of in a silo. So the great thing is, I feel like now SEO is definitely becoming more holistic and part of the broader marketing picture. So being able to really consider like the user experience, the engagement, and focus more on what's important for your client's brand. Really focusing on knowing the target audience, or like super core and fundamental things, but it's so important now when it's so easy to just generate AI content, but I guess without clear goals, target audience, it's gonna be a lot more low quality content that's already filling the internet.
Yeah, for sure. And also, how do you feel about, obviously we'll get onto it, but how do you feel about all the sort of AI integration into search engines and stuff? Are you getting questions about all this from clients? Are they concerned? Are you seeing traffic drops or anything like that, and they're concerned? And how are you kind of responding to that?
I think that it's definitely gonna be continue to be common to see, especially top of the funnel, like more informational questions, and that traffic for clients going down because customers might just be asking ChatGPT or Gemini instead. So what I am kind of providing a reassurance on is that focus on giving the best answers in the content that you do put out, and that's going to increase the chances of getting into like a LM response. And even if it is just a 0-click search, if like a customer's first impression of you is great because you provided a great explanation or statistic, something unique, then that's still going to be really helpful. And then the other reassurance would be that for the comparison, like middle funnel terms and commercial terms, at the end of the day, customers will still need to eventually click on like websites towards that conversion point. So really making sure that that's done well and that's highly optimized for is still going to be a huge help.
Yeah, I mean, more than ever, like you say, it's quality over quantity, isn't it? I mean, that's just been brought to the forefront more than ever. So, I guess obviously touching upon this, how is the increasing reliance on AI affecting traditional SEO strategies? Obviously, two kind of angles here. Obviously, it's kind of like we just said about, users are going to be using kind of AI tools more these days in terms of going onto large language models to get answers, AI overviews, and also from SEOs, how we're using AI systems to kind of help us in our building our strategies, so yeah, from both angles, I guess. How do you see that kind of changing things?
I think one of the main areas would be that the focus is definitely shifting away from just like more of a keyword focus only. Like for example, even if like an on-page SEO tool based on like term frequencies and what competitors are doing might suggest that you're getting a great score in with your SEO content. What I'm really advocating for clients now is like how they're going to put in that unique information or like the core USPs for their brand, and like to actually make sure that's consistent in all the content they create. I definitely recommend to still use AI to help with content ideas and getting like the flow of the content. But what I'm advocating clients to do, it's really important to focus on the information gain content, like get first party insights from customer data from like the clients, like founders and subject matter experts, so that you can actually put that unique value into any content you write. Also really important to make sure, especially with AI, that the content is focused on like a client, like the brand USPs, and I think the clear values need to be sort of prompted in and edited and made sure that it's not going in other directions. I think being more focused is the key now.
In terms of you using AI and people who work with you, how do you kind of suggest doing that? Because obviously a lot of people in the industry say, it's no good for obviously keyword research and stuff like that. But how do you use it in your day-to-day sort of, if you're building out a strategy, for example?
In terms of using AI, I think the information that you feed into the AI can really make a huge difference. So instead of like say giving it a prompt without like prior data, I think a huge tip I would have, like sort of setting up the LLM, is to feed it, if you can, like first party data from a client, or like say you sent your client a survey about their goals, about their brand, like how they would approach a customer for the first time, what they would say. If you can give as much context as possible, that's going to make the output like much better. So I'd recommend, say, feeding it your customer personas, making sure it understands your target audience. That's really, really helpful. And then in terms of other ways, I think AI is really, really helpful to analyze like large data sets, which can be really difficult for us to look at. For example, if you have, like, say you have 100,000 rows of a content audit, or you're doing a huge keyword research piece, it can be really, really helpful to look at the trends in the clusters, for example.
Yeah, 100%. I think obviously that's and with ChatGPT, for example, you got the projects, and obviously now it has some form of memory. So if you can, like you say, feed in that information, there's a good chance you can get something better from it. And obviously, yeah, if you can feed it as much info like data, obviously it's going to be doing a better job and that kind of thing. So in the sense of you kind of touch upon it, so I guess we can cover that. But you're saying with AI overviews, ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, whatever they use, the best way you're going to show up is obviously by creating unique content with kind of backed up with right sources, expert input, and things like that. That's basically what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I definitely think that like say for AI overviews, even from the research into generative engine optimization from last year, like can see that by citing like relevant sources, or like when you're like citing like a quote, referencing with the authoritative sources, that's going to really help to get your paragraph or your featured snippet like showing in AI overviews. I think it's also reassuring to know that AI overviews is still heavily grounded in like the traditional, what's ranking in traditional search results. So if we can still focus on ranking the first page, that's going to already give you a much better shot of being in AI overviews as well.
Yeah, I think it's mostly the top three as usual, isn't it? So that's that's the case. And yeah, I mean, like you said, and like many have said, there's things that others can't replicate. Expert input from relevant sources and data and statistics that people can't really get their hands on. That's going to make your stuff stand out for sure. And what key factors should businesses focus on when conducting a content audit to improve SEO performance? And how much has that changed, I guess, as well? Because as you say, keywords, slightly different emphasis on keywords now than it used to be. So it'd be interesting how you kind of approach your audience now.
I'd say like for a content audit, there's often like you said, a big focus on, like, say, looking at how many backlinks a page has or what keywords it's ranking for, which is still important. I think it's also important to remember to, say, look at the engagement that's coming in from other channels. Could be social, could be direct, and also look at how, like, what the engagement metrics are like for that page. Like, what's the average session duration? Are people from that page going to another page or dropping out? So I would suggest that it's really important to, I guess, audit holistically. And SEOs will have to work closely with marketing, with brand, with legal, with sales, to really, I guess, have a unified goal about like what's important to keep and what isn't, and like what the brand wants to expand on or remove as well.
Yeah, obviously, like you say, it's more important than ever now as the SEO to go out and look at the other, people have said it before in the industry, look at the other channels and what's going on there, the trends in, on platforms like Reddit and social channels, and, communicating with other departments and stuff. Do you think that's where, obviously, as you said, is you think like now it's moving more towards like that user experience side of it, and also looking further afield for inspiration and trends and data, not just relying on our usual SEO tools to give us that sort of search volumes and stuff like that?
Yeah, I feel like it's going. Yeah, we have more work to do because we're gonna have to look across all those places. But of course, like, technical SEO and would still be super important, especially if it's like, say, a content audit of a huge site or a programmatic site.
How much do you think traditional SEO tools still have a part to play in like a SEO audit? Do you think? How much do you still use? Like, I don't know what tools you use, but the usual SEO tools, how much do they still play a part in your audits when you do them?
I think this is a controversial topic. I would say that, I mean, for me, I love to see the data. So it would be a combination of looking at your clients, like first party data, analytics, search console, CRM, customer data, in terms of like looking at the market from a quantitative point of view. Then of course, like, still looking at doing your keyword research using tools, looking at search volume, whether interest is going up or declining. It's still super important, but I would say take it with a pinch of salt, because third-party tools don't know everything, and you've seen that some SEO tools may not actually show like the full search volume, or for new interesting topics, it may not actually have appeared yet. So yeah, listen to what the subject matter experts say in the business as well. And I think don't be worried to touch, say, zero search volume things, or things that the brand is very confident that are what their customers want to hear more about.
Yeah, 100%. I think like when you look in Search Console and you see things are really trending up in terms of key terms, and then you'll go and look on a certain tool and it'll tell you that you're getting 0 clicks or search volume per month, and you're like, well, I know that's wrong because I can see in the data it's not right.
Exactly.
So yeah, so you should, like you say, take it a pinch of salt. What's your go-to tools? I'd be interested in that.
My go-to tools, I mean, I try to keep it relatively simple. So I've got, still got Hrefs. I actually like using POP, Page Optimizer Pro, for the search data is really good. In terms of on page, like Surface SEO is good as well. I also like Market Muse, looking at what's the word for the competitor analysis with the sort of heat map it has is great. And then in terms of technical, still can't go wrong with with Screaming Frog, Sitebulb. Recently, I've also invested in like more geogrids in terms of like for local search, local Falcon. So yeah, there's a lots of tools to just get different data sets, but really it's putting it together anyway. That's the most important.
Yeah, 100%. And also when I'm interested because I'm updating my current audit layout. So when you're looking
Yeah.
at kind of the user experience side of things, what do you include in those audits? Like obviously you talked about heat maps and stuff like that and engagement times on the page, but is there anything else you look at when you're looking at kind of the user's experience on the website?
So I think there's sort of two ways of doing things. I think there's sort of what we see from experience and best practices with what's important, like say for UX design, like for example, like looking at visual hierarchy or not having too many CTAs, looking at accessibility. So there's sort of the best practices side of things that I'd put into like a UX and CRO audit. And then yeah, the second side would be more based off the first party data, like if you're able to use something like say Microsoft Clarity for example to get session recordings, see where people are clicking or see where there might be some confusion. So another area that I would recommend looking at is that journey to getting to say the phone call or to the form submission or clicking a call button.
Yeah, good points. And I think like if you use screen readers, you'll be amazed to find how many issues you come across when you just listen to if you've got, certain problems and you can't, read and you got to use screen readers and stuff, then you'll be amazed to see how many problems on a page you come across. And also, I think it was Will Critcher I had on here that was discussing just how placement on a page has such a big impact on the user experience. If you land on a page expecting to see something and you got to scroll all the way to the bottom to find what you actually came on to find, then obviously that's a really poor user experience, and many people might just be put off and leave before they get to that point. So yeah, those sort of checks is really important for sure. And how often should a content audit be performed, and what are the common mistakes that you see that people should avoid in today's world?
I'd say, I mean, one thing's probably not doing them often enough. Like a lot of brands might say, look at doing a content audit once a year, which is a good start. I mean, I think depending on the size of the website, like if it's a like big like e-commerce site, it is always like having inventory moving in and out, or like if it's like a publisher, a new site, then probably be looking at like more towards once a quarter, once a month, even. In terms of mistakes, I think being really, really careful about content deletion as well. I've definitely seen cases where, like, say a piece is not getting a lot of traffic, but could be showing like, historical authority and then delete like a lot of pages at once, and that can be quite bad for the overall site authority. In terms of other mistakes, I'd say like having to not only looking at it, like as we said, like not just from an SEO point of view, but like making sure like, we need this page more because for different stakeholders it's really important for the brand, or it could be for compliance as well. So just lots of factors to consider.
Yeah, I was going to say that because obviously, from an SEO, you can look at it and all the data doesn't look very good. And you think, just waste of time. But we've got to realize we're not the only channel, believe it or not. And other people do need content. So it could be for PR, like you say, or actually, legal reasons why that page exists. So, this is why it's important to keep in touch with the other departments and stuff. And how do you, because obviously, I work at Macmillan. We've got a big website estate. How would you prioritize pieces of content to audit? Because you've got millions, well, maybe not millions, but thousands and thousands of pages, all different types of parts to the site. If you have a huge site like that, how do you go ahead, like prioritizing what to audit and when?
I think the first step would be looking at what the business goals are, like the potentially the quick wins, or thinking about the content to remove because we know that it doesn't convert, or maybe we don't really want to focus on that segment of the business anymore. So sort of just, I think the first thing would be tying it back to what we're trying to achieve with the content audit. Like, is it because of like technical SEO health? Is it irrelevant content? So I'd say aligning on that first.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the same with I guess you would definitely agree that when you're working with external clients, understanding what they're trying to achieve, their objectives, is vital before you get to work, because you could think something is really important based on the data you collect, but that might not be they might not be interested in that as much. They might have completely different objectives. So I guess you would agree, right?
Exactly. It seems straightforward, but I think really aligning and making sure what that stakeholder, what that department, or what the client is really looking for at the beginning. And it may not be what they say they want, but then you figure out later that's what I should actually be doing. So
And a couple of topics now that I'm really interested in hearing more about, because it's two that I've been reading up on, and I know that you know your stuff about these. So what is SXO?
So SXO, which stands for Search Experience Optimization, it's really, I'd say, like an evolution of SEO. So it's looking at combining SEO, user experience or UX, and conversion rate optimization. And it's really about realizing that like Google is not rewarding content that's just optimized for SEO, but content that like users have a great experience with and actually want to engage with and click on and eventually convert on. So looking at how can we not just get traffic and great rankings, but how can we actually create really like an engaging user experience once someone gets to the website, and have that main mindset of encouraging your potential customers to convert and take that desired action, really.
And obviously it's always about you can get tons of traffic, but it doesn't convert. It's just a waste of time, isn't it? You need to make sure it converts in some way. It could be filling in a form, it could be buying something, it could be donating something, whatever. That's the whole point. You don't just want to have a shop and loads of people walk in and they don't buy anything. It's a waste of time. You need people to buy things or whatever in your shop. And obviously there's been a history at times with the UX teams. They've got their own vision on how things should work, and it doesn't always match up with the SEO's vision in terms of like what we want. How do you make sure that you get that sort of equal balance between what UX, if you have a UX team or person, and an SEO? Like, how do you make sure that works?
Yeah, so that's definitely a tricky thing. I'd say the first step is making sure that like your SEO team, your UX team, they are educated in how what are SEO best practices, what are the UX best practices, and sort of respect each other's disciplines and know why it's important for certain things to happen. So really, I think it's the education, it's the collaborative mindset, like aligning on the goals, and that at the end of the day, we're looking to help our audience and focus on the conversions. So I mean, for us, like from an agency side, how we work is like the SEO person, the UX person, we're working together, like not really separately. So each deliverable, like each person has a part to play along the way.
Yeah, I mean, so it should all be about collaboration, right? And I think if you do come up against some, there's some tricky decisions, I guess, one way to resolve it would be testing it out, the A/B test, see what, you got one idea, they got one idea, then test it out, see what happens, and whoever wins, that's the decision. Have you seen in your own experience in your agency around SXO actually working in terms of, carrying something out and seeing the results from it?
Yeah, 100%. Especially, I think we've seen really great results when we're working on improving the UX or the design together with actually making like SEO optimizations to a website. It's been really, really powerful to see that happen at the same time. So, for example, if a client knows that their site needs like a redesign or doesn't like they're rebranding, that's a great time actually for the SEO to come in and be like wait a moment, this content actually, it's not optimized. Like, what's the target here? And that's the time to do both at once. And Google and users will see how significant the change is and is much more likely to reward that altogether. So engagement is going to be so much better once that's done. So for example, I'll give you an example. We recently had like a services business come to us, and they essentially wanted to get more leads. Like they were getting, say, maybe 1 to 3 leads a week, and we were able to get that to say 1 or 2 a day even. And that was really through being able to like I said, majorly improve the website experience, which is pretty bad, and then also have all the content optimized, the landing page is great, and also work on improving like the CTAs around calling, around even the like what the form looked like and how it was designed too.
Yeah, I think that's something that, in the past SEOs haven't looked at enough with like that, we get them on the page, and then what happens next? They have to go through to a form. What does that experience look like? How is it? How does it feel as a user, and how they, is that the thing that's putting them off and not bringing in that conversion? So it all marries together. And I guess one thing with SXO is that it could make an instant impact, in terms of like, if you work with the UX team and build, improve that user experience, you could see that straight away start changing the results, I guess, not just in obviously the rankings, but in performance. So yeah, it's cool. And in terms of, the next topic that I was really interested in, something I'm reading up on, I know Mark Williams-Cook, he talks a bit about this because of what came out from Google and the patterns and all that kind of stuff. But information gain, and another one was information density that I was reading up about as well. But yeah, can you just tell us what information gain is first, and then we get cracking on that?
Okay, so I'll go with the simple version, but so essentially, information gain in an SEO context is actually around Google's patent on Google information gain score. So essentially, for a user, and once they've, based on their previous search history, Google will then score the potential next content someone could read. And if it's something they haven't seen before and it's providing a lot more new value, that page is going to be much more likely to surface for that user. So essentially, with information gain, Google is really rewarding unique and valuable content that isn't just what everyone else is saying on the SERPs. So because of that, it's super important to not just say, like a lot of SEO tools will look at mentioning, like, how often do I need to mention these terms because my competitors are, but that's not really enough. It's really important to look at finding those unique data points, like proprietary data. It could be telling the information in a different format that someone else hasn't really done, like say making it into a nice infographic or a really engaging short video as well.
Yeah, I think it's a really good mindset, isn't it, in terms of, the information gain and the information density side of it, because it's like, how can I make sure that this information is, one, concise and, not full of fluff or jargon, but also making sure that it's actually going to be valuable to the user when they actually land on it, so that having that mindset. And obviously, I've said this many times, but Mark Williams-Cook, he has his on Spotify, where he goes through all the different patents from Google, and he does a quick 10-14 minute sort of video on it, and explains sort of all this stuff, how it works and stuff. So definitely check those out on Spotify. I guess you type in Google patterns, it will come up. But that's where I kind of came across this, and obviously all the leaks and things that happened around Google last year kind of brought this out to the forefront. And in terms of how can SEOs leverage the concept of information gain? Obviously, we discussed it a bit. You just said about creating it different ways. But in terms of, like, if you're talking to if you have content writers, how would you make sure that they, because I guess, when you're, and I can't speak for all of them, but some content writers are still kind of in that mindset back in the day where you could just fluff it out a bit and add in loads of sort of joining words and jargon and stuff, and that was fine. But now people's patience and the way things are ranked and indexed, and how you gain visibility on the search results have changed. So how do you get across to them that that's kind of the times are changing in a way.
I mean, I think one practical piece of advice, like if their content writers are going to be creating different, like writing on different topics, would be to actually make the information gain part of the content brief. So actually adding in a section that's like, what can we add to this piece as this brand that no one else has? How are we going to add in those unique data points or experiences into the content? So I think baking it into from the content brief stage is really, really helpful as a mindset. And then the framework that I recommend, like in general, would be the first step is actually collecting the first party data and then keeping it in a repository so that it's easy to, like when you're writing a new piece or editing an old one, to go back to a particular topic that your brand has and be like, I can pull out this statistic that we found or this piece of information from our first party data and put that in. Also important to, I think, update and your persona so that whenever we're looking at the content, we have a specific lens to double check if like we're on the right track. Also look for like the information gaps, like someone might be searching this keyword, but what's on the results now isn't really what people actually want answered. So there's a bit of a mismatch. So trying to find those like opportunities and addressing them. And then keeping on top of like emerging and trending topics and being a first mover on those ones as well.
Really, really great points actually, and on that, Amanda Walls was on and said about, obviously we got tools now like Hrefs where you can find out the intent behind certain queries and stuff, and these are changing all the time. So yeah, one website might have been answering it correctly a year or so ago, but now the intent behind the whole term has changed. So if you can jump on that, then obviously you've got a good chance of getting seen, and like you say, jumping on trending topics. So yeah, build that into your strategies, around checking out Google Trends and things like that. And I was also going to say, obviously you'll be surprised on how much, obviously it depends on the size of your company, but how much data and different surveys and things that are being carried out that you may not have too much awareness of, but could give you some ammo to go out there with unique content. And one last thing for me, because I've been doing it recently, is this one thing that ChatGPT can do reasonably well. Obviously, it's still got its flaws, but finding kind of research papers on particular topics that could give you some interesting data and jump off points in terms of like where you could go with the statistics and data and stuff. There's obviously papers on everything pretty much, and you'll be surprised what data you could find that people aren't really utilizing. So especially with the tasks they have in ChatGPT now, so you could say, go away, find me papers on such and such and come back tomorrow with what you've got. And so you haven't got to go and do it yourself. It's just like sit back and wait for it to come in, but it's still got its problems, obviously. So yeah, and so did you want to say something or?
No, I was just gonna say, I think you're super excited for this year still being like the year of agents and all that. And yeah, I think I still have a lot to do with testing how we can really bake in the agents or whatever's next, DeepSeek or something else into our process.
Yeah, I was actually, I don't know how much you've used it, but DeepSeek, I've used the research function a couple of times and it's pretty good. I'm not going to lie, it's pretty good. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that develops. So this is another one that I'm very interested in about aligned search and that kind of thing. So many businesses treat SEO PPC design, separate things, departments, they all work in silos a lot of the time. But how can you make sure these three elements plus others are being kind of tied together in a single cohesive strategy that basically maximizes engagement and drives conversions? Because I think many times obviously it's tricky, especially if there's an agency looking after one of the things, or you work in a big company and it's really difficult to kind of pin the other people down because they've got their own stuff going on. How do you think people should approach this?
Yeah, I think it's definitely still pretty hard to align the teams, in a big enterprise. I'd say in an ideal situation, like PPC, SEO design, there would be like a sync up where can align on the same goals and make sure that resources are available so that we can basically help each other throughout what people are doing each month or each quarter. So for us, yes, being more agency side, what we've seen work really well is like PPC, Google Ads. That's a great way to really, really quickly test what ad copy is going to convert well. Then you can use those insights about your target audience and what they actually really resonate with to optimize your SEO landing pages on the website. I think often, it might be that, say, the PPC team has done a really, really great job with the ads targeting, but maybe they haven't had the chance or not sure how to then optimize it on the website, or vice versa. So then being able to actually take the insights for what converts, actually optimize and create really great landing pages that are optimized for SEO, for the user experience on the page is super important. And that way, we have more of a unified, I guess, customer acquisition strategy, so that from the first time someone sees a client's or brand's ad, they can see style of the copy and the assets, the images used. They click on it, the landing page experience seems consistent, gives more details, and then they're eventually ready to move forward. So finding a way to make that process really seamless and consistent, I think, is the key. Sounds simple in practice, but hard to execute, of course, with a big team.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you approach it? Because it is difficult, because there's so many, for example, depends on the company, but paid are going after a whole range of different topics and queries. And obviously now you've got things like PMAX involved. There's a lot of automation involved. There's temporary landing pages they use for certain, campaigns. And then obviously SEOs, we're always busy with audits and so on and so forth, and got our own objectives. But how do you kind of, how do you make sure you prioritize the most important things, basically, when it's from a paid side and an organic side?
I mean, I think kind of going back to what the the core or the biggest, starting with what's going to convert the most, and we know that the business is going to see a big return on. So maybe each team, they might still have a section of their time working more on new areas, new products and initiatives and testing. But ideally, if there was a way to allocate your core foundations work, where you can then collaborate and look at how to improve both the landing pages, the design, and also the messaging on the ad side together, that would be really, really powerful. So I think it's really going to be about how the business can sort of recognize that they're trying to work on say this one core service area that we know we always convert well in, but we don't have a great SEO presence, for example. Yeah.
I guess obviously how much do you get other teams involved as well? Because obviously you've got social, email, PR that you know there's quite a few. Do you kind of just stick to organic and paid and the user experience team, or would you go further afield for collaboration?
Ideally, yeah, we would have collaboration across all of it, but yeah, of course, practically, yeah, every company is gonna it's gonna be easier to work with some teams or more feasible than with others. But the best practice I'd definitely say would be then seeing how you can get that brand consistency across, like, say, your social strategy, whether that's, yeah, the paid social, organic, influencers, and carrying across the same messaging and like design consistency too, like even in EDMs.
I guess obviously if you're a small business as well that hasn't got all these teams, it would be then down to, like you say, prioritization on those areas that will be bringing in the conversions, making the difference. You know, if you've only, yeah, if you got a Google Ads account and obviously you do some SEO and some of the UX side of it where you can, then obviously again it'll be prioritizing, you know, making sure you just focus on those core pages, I guess. Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, for enterprise, I'd say, even if it could be positioned more as, like a foundational test and learn project where people can actually come together and sort of align on one thing, and then measure the success of that at first, and then sort of see how like that can be baked into each team's KPIs.
Yeah, I'd just say more in terms of like if you don't have any teams, you could just one person or two people.
Yes, that would
Yeah.
be, yeah. I mean, that would make things easy. Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of, you know, getting to the last few points now, just looking more towards the future, I guess. Um, you know, with AI and voice search growing, as we know, what will SEO look like in a few years, or probably just the next year, I guess, the way that artificial intelligence is expanding. How do you see things going?
I think like everyone is definitely saying, like you're saying, I think voice search is gonna get more important. So actually optimizing for more like conversational language and questions that people will ask is super important. I think visual search is only gonna get more and more important and smarter. So making sure that it's not just text, that like custom images or interactive content, including that into the overall strategy, I think would be, yeah, super important.
Yeah, I think you see that now with ChatGPT. I see more videos being featured in the results, and we've seen like Perplexity. They offer many sort of images and videos and stuff like that. So yeah, for sure. And do you think like obviously we touched upon it earlier, but with zero click searches, do you think that's going to dominate the future? And you know, how can websites adapt to this trend? And also, you know, if you are reporting to a client, how should you educate them around this and I guess put their mind at ease? Because I guess obviously some will see traffic decline and get panicky. I know we touched upon it earlier, but yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it really is about like managing the expectations around that. So yeah, I would be saying to clients, yeah, it's possible that we are going to see a drop in traffic, especially from informational and top of funnel, where yeah, zero click is going to get more and more prominent, and it's not even just going to be from from like a featured snippet or AI overviews. It could be from a voice assistant. It could be from looking at a ChatGPT result. So that's going to be a completely different measurement game. So I'd say being able to really tie, like for SEOs, organic performance to conversions and focusing on that is going to be super important rather than just looking at like traffic, for example.
Yeah, I mean, visibility is definitely going to be key to monitor. And I said, you know, my dream would be that if we got some data behind how visible we are on ChatGPT, because obviously we can measure traffic to a degree nowadays with certain methods on Google Analytics, but it'd be great if we actually had those sort of, you know, Search Console have said they're not going to give us any info on AI overviews, just like they did on feature snippets. So I don't think we're going to get that this year. So yeah, I guess just to wrap up in terms of, you know, what have you got coming up in the next year? Anything special? Anything in the agency you're working on? It's your time to see us.
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, I'm actually working on a search experience optimization course that's going to be coming out later this year. That's really going to hopefully give people more practical guidance on how they can really implement like a strategy looking across SEO UX and in CRO. Next month, I will be heading your way to Europe for Digital Marketing Europe, to Lithuania. Also growing the women in SEO and digital marketing community. So be looking out for more like international events like that, as well as here in Australia.
Oh, sounds awesome. Yeah, I know you're always traveling around, so I appreciate, and I know it's late in Australia, so I appreciate your time today. No, it's been some really, really interesting insights. Really great to hear from you. So yeah, I really do appreciate your time, and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.